have. In 2019, Garcia was issued a deportation order. Two separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13, which is a gang that may be even worse.
We've been watching President Donald Trump there swearing in the new administrator of the CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid.
He did have due process. Everything we know about him is documented because he did go through the court systems. He was stopped for trafficking. His wife did file these domestic violence charges against him. He was arrested with MS-13 members with a roll of cash that had the eyes and the ears and the mouths of the presidents erased, which is an MS-13 markings. This is all non-disputed. So
nothing you're talking about doesn't stop halfway.
But I'm saying he already got his due process.
You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
My husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, first of all, happy Easter weekend, everyone. God bless. Today, we got to give you some updates on the absolute circus currently going on between Kilmar Abrego Garcia, Democrats Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen, and the entire situation still ongoing in El Salvador. And I think circus truly is the appropriate word for it. Dun, 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 dun. That's exactly what we're watching. By the way, great image right here, okay? Just amazing political optics by Chris Van Hollen. But anyways, to briefly recap where we are, who, first of all, is Kilmar Abrego Garcia, for those of you who might forget that name? That is, of course, the quote-unquote mistakenly deported Maryland father who was sent to El Salvador by the Trump administration, except that we found out long since that perhaps it was not such a mistake after all, considering he was a well-documented MS-13 gang member, according to local police and actual legal filings. And on top of that, actually a domestic abuser. So clearly just the upstanding member of society that Democrats typically would go out and defend the so-called civil rights of, although that whole trend of defending illegal aliens, defending violent criminals, defending specifically MS-13 gang members is nothing new. We watched plenty of that happen back in the first Trump administration. But, we were told for so long that the Democrat Party is going to learn its lessons. How many times did you hear James Carville and Van Jones and all these characters going on CNN and saying the Democrat Party has to introspect? Well, clearly they're learning none of those lessons, because the whole publicity stunt here to go out and defend Kilmar Garcia has massively backfired, as not only does Chris Van Hollen just look like a complete idiot and he's in El Salvador looking like a deer in headlights, but on top of that, the evidence continues to come out in favor of the Trump administration that, hey, this deportation perhaps was not such a mistake after all. So we'll tell you about all of this in today's video, because there's a lot to recap. Lots gone down. This guy, Chris Van Hollen, won't shut up. He got straight up trolled and humiliated by the government of El Salvador for the second time, okay? So it's just truly a spectacle. Anyways, we'll tell you about it. First, though, do us a favor. Make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. You subscribing is the best way to support our work and ensure that we can keep doing these videos. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that said, okay, so let's just briefly recap the last time that we checked in on Chris Van Hollen. He is, of course, again, the Democrat senator of Maryland. He was in El Salvador, basically fuming live on camera that the Salvadorian government wouldn't just let him into a maximum security prison with absolutely no warning or prior, accommodations on a random Wednesday. I'm not even making that up, and you can go watch our video. That's exactly what happened.
I also told his wife and family that I would try to meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia while I was here. So I asked the vice president if I could meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia. And he said, well, you need to make earlier provisions to go visit CCOT. I said, I'm not interested at this moment in taking a tour of CCOT. I just want to meet with Mr. Abrego Garcia. He said he was not able to make that happen. I asked, he said he needed a little more time. I asked him if I came back next week, whether I'd be able to see Mr. Abrego Garcia. He said he couldn't promise that either. So I asked him if I could get on the phone, either video phone or just a phone, and talk to Mr. Abrego Garcia. So I could just ask him how he's doing so I could report back to his family. He said he could not arrange that. He said maybe if the American embassy were to ask, maybe that could happen. So I will certainly ask the American embassy to ask the government of El Salvador to connect us by phone. I asked him how about his family? How can he talk to his wife so that she can hear his voice? I let him know that the family has requested that. He said he was not sure whether he could make that happen. So we have an unjust situation here. The Trump administration is lying about Abrego Garcia.
Right. Well, again, that's all what went down on Wednesday. This guy, it would appear perhaps on taxpayer dollars, we're not really sure, but nonetheless, Democrat Senator Van Hollen went all the way to El Salvador without prior notice and basically demanded that the government of El Salvador let him into a maximum security prison in order to meet with this guy, Kilmar Garcia, and was absolutely pissed. He was like claiming persecution, as you can see in this press conference, political bias or whatever, because, gee, we can't just open the doors to our maximum security prison CCOT on a random Wednesday without you even telling us or trying to make prior accommodations first. So that was certainly a pretty hilarious situation to witness. Now, the thing is, ever since, right, despite the fact that seems completely reasonable, yeah, you can't just show up into a random country and demand everything from them. It's like, who do you even think you are? Nonetheless, the speculation in the days since was like, oh, is Kilmar Garcia being tortured? Is he even alive? We need to hear from him, blah, 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 blah. And so the Bukele administration in El Salvador responded by doing something pretty hilarious. They actually allowed the meeting between Kilmar Garcia and, as you can see, Senator Van Hollen. Nayib Bukele put out on X, he said, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, trolling them here, says, miraculously risen from the so-called death camps and torture, is now sipping margaritas with Senator Van Hollen in the tropical paradise of El Salvador. And it's like, yeah, crazy how that works, right? Oh, newsflash, the guy is safe. He's alive. He's not being tortured. He looks pretty normal to me. And as you can see, hilariously, they're even drinking margaritas. I mean, what was going on with that? So, pretty funny there. But anyways, the thing is, right after that meeting, immediately after, Nayib Bukele confirms, okay, now that he's been confirmed healthy, basically saying to the liberal media, okay, you guys can shut up now, right? Like, he's not being tortured. He's not in a gulag. He's in a high security prison, yes, but we're a civilized nation. Okay, this is not, this is not some authoritarian regime from World War II we're talking about here. He gets the honor of staying in El Salvador's custody with a American flag, handshaking a Salvadorian flag. So basically saying, okay, you can come see him. You can make sure he's alive. But guess what? He stays with us, buddy. So the entire goal, the entire mission that Senator Van Hollen here had in El Salvador was hilariously rejected and denied. And, you certainly love to see it. Now, here's where the whole thing gets pretty hilarious and ridiculous is, as you can see, very conveniently here, right? In the photograph posted by Senator Van Hollen, the margaritas that you saw in Bukele's picture were not there. It was just like water, and I guess that's a coffee or something like that. Well, he's actually been in his press conference, and he's done multiple press conferences on this, just absolutely fuming. Apparently, right, Van Hollen is now backtracking, as you can see. After Nayib Bukele caught Van Hollen and Kilmar Garcia enjoying margaritas together, again, looks far from like torture or a gulag or some type of death camp or concentration camp, he apparently insists that they had nothing to do with it and didn't touch the drinks. In fact, he's now accusing El Salvador of being the one who planted the margaritas for the photo op. That's right. You can't even make this up. And by the way, I just want to say the whole thing here is funny because if you look at like the pictures that Bukele posted, you can see the saturation, the color gradient. It looks like peaceful and happy. notice how, Van Hollen tries to dim the colors to make it look like, oh, we're in some type of cold industrial setting. Anyways, nonetheless, take a listen to the excuses, the cope, and the meltdown to continue to try to paint this narrative that the guy is having some type of like human rights violated, when in reality, no. The government of El Salvador and the U.S. government believes he's an MS-13 member. And guess what? In that nation, this is how they handle it. They lock people up. Take a listen.
Now I just want to take a moment. I hadn't planned to do this, but as I was landing on the airplane, I got a transcript of some questions President Trump was asked at the White House today about what I would call Margarita-Gate. I don't know if you guys have been following this, but President Bukele, after I met with Kilmar, did this tweet showing us at a table with these two glasses. So here's what happened. When I first sat down with Kilmar, we just had glasses of water on the table. I think maybe some coffee. And as we were talking, one of the government people came over and deposited 2 other glasses on the table with ice, and I don't know if it was salt or sugar around the top, but they look like margaritas. And if you look at the one they put in front of Kilmar, it actually had a little less liquid than the one in front of me, to try to make it look, I assume, like he drank out of it. Let me just be very clear. Neither of us touched the drinks that were in front of us. And if you want to play a little Sherlock Holmes, I'll tell you how you can know that. So if you look at the video or the picture I sent out from the beginning of our meeting, you'll see there are no glasses on the table. So you'll see in later videos they are on the table. But they made a little mistake. For some people are very careful, right? If you sip out of one of those glasses, some of whatever it was, salt or sugar, would disappear. You would see a gap. There's no gap. Nobody drank any margaritas or sugar water or whatever it is. But this is a lesson into the lengths that President Bukele will do to deceive people about what's going on. And it's also shows the lengths that the Trump administration and the president will go to, because when he was asked about a reporter about this, he just went along for the ride.
Are you serious? Really? So the conspiracy theory we're being asked to just blindly believe here is that apparently the government of El Salvador purposely planted what appeared to be margaritas in the photographs in order to make the meeting seem more casual or something like that. It was that important to them? They planted this as part of a elaborate oh, come on. Are you like, it's ridiculous, okay? The cope there is insane. By the way, he's talking about the sugar or the salt on the side. I'm looking at the picture right here. It literally, you can't really tell, but it does appear some of it might have been drinking. And then, the other side, you can't really see. It's like, okay, come on. Seriously, guys. Anyways, but what that single video, I think summarizes on a larger point is the way in which the narrative by the media, the more that they continue to try to talk about Kilmar Garcia and make it a big deal, the more attention they put on it, the more that the broader narrative continues to come crashing down for them. Because guess what? Newsflash here, guys, as you may know by now, Kilmar Abrego Garcia was not exactly the most upstanding member of society.
Emerged of Senator Van Hollen sipping what appears to be margaritas. Abrego Garcia down in El Salvador. Do you encourage other Democrats to fly down to El Salvador to meet with this illegal alien who's been accused of?
I like this guy. See, now this is the kind of a reporter we like. There aren't enough of them. We got to get some more of them. But no, I appreciate that question. No, look, he's a fake. I know him. I know them all. They're all fake. And they have no interest in that prisoner. That prisoner's record is unbelievably bad. If you would go into the room, you might, if you would, Caroline, maybe go into the room and see if you can find that little slip. I wrote some things down. I don't know why you'd want to keep him, but we got a little biography of him. Not a very innocent guy. Yeah, please.
Mr. President, in the spirit of Easter Sunday.
While we're on the subject, right? So you're talking about Abrego Garcia. Is that the one? Yeah. Is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member and foreign terrorist. This comes out of the State Department and very legitimate sources. I mean, I assume I'm just giving you what they handed to me, but this was supposed to be certified stuff. In 2019, Garcia was issued a deportation order. 2 separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13, which is a gang that may be even worse than Tren de Aragua.
Yeah, I mean, just to briefly recap where we've been so far, right? What we already know, and then I'll show you some of the new stuff that came out today. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, indeed, yes, has been identified in multiple police reports, as well as an actual arrest record, legal filings, etc., as being a member of MS-13, okay? And we've talked about that already. Now, on top of that, what's apparently now come out today is that on his very fingertips, because remember, not only did he get arrested alongside known MS-13 members, not only did the gang units of the local police in Maryland identify him as MS-13, not only was he wearing MS-13 insignias when he was arrested in 2019, apparently now the Trump administration is pointing out he has the very tattoos on his fingers that identify him as a member of MS-13. Apparently, whatever this symbol is right here is supposed to represent MS-13. Now, of course, people can say, oh, well, you know, that's just, come on, you're reading into this too much. Well, it's worth noting here as well that when his wife posted recently on social media saying, I miss you so much, I won't stop fighting, I promise, hashtag Kilmar Abrego Garcia, notably here, for some odd reason, right, she puts these heart emojis right over Kilmar Abrego Garcia's fingertips. Why could that be? Surely that's just a coincidence, right? Surely it's not because both of them know he has tattooed MS-13 insignias on his very fingers. Gee, I don't know. I'm just, pointing all of this out here. It's also, so again, the MS-13 stuff already well documented. But on top of that, it's also recently come out the fact that apparently Kilmar Garcia is a domestic abuser. This wife of his that is now claiming he's such an upstanding Maryland father and great guy, apparently in 2021 on, I believe, 2 separate occasions, had to file police reports and legal filings against Kilmar Garcia for beating her, right? For domestic violence. And today, when she was on Good Morning America, she was asked about this very question. Hey, you're now claiming he's such an upstanding, amazing guy, but he literally beat you and you went to the police and tried to report that back in the day. And take a look here as she freezes and basically refuses to answer that question as to why this upstanding Maryland father is not exactly the patron saint that he's being painted out to be.
I have to ask it. You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
Husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay, I'm not going to push on that apparently, but how much?
Yeah, that's interesting, right? I don't know. What's up with that? Here's the thing. The Democrat counter argument I have heard, and I'm going to bring this up again. We every single video I've done about Kilmar Garcia, I've pointed this out, but I think it's so important for people to know and remember, okay? The Democrat counter argument, and I see them pivoting now, in fact. I'm seeing them say things like, look, it's not just about Kilmar Garcia or whether he's a great guy. It's about the fact that he was denied his due process, right? Maybe he was MS-13 after all. Of course, at first he was a Maryland father. Now they're saying, look, even if he was MS-13, they didn't handle it correctly. It's like, wait, I thought you said he was an upstanding member of society. Nonetheless, okay, regardless. Just to recap the guy's rap sheet. Kilmar Abrego Garcia, number one, is an illegal alien. So that enough is grounds to be deported, obviously. He's an illegal alien from El Salvador, meaning he's a Salvadorian citizen, meaning we indeed sent the guy back to his own nation. And, under international law, they have no duty or obligation to return them, considering he's their citizen, right? He's under their jurisdiction, et cetera, et cetera. But on top of that, documented in multiple police reports and court filings as being both a member of MS-13 and a not so great guy when it comes to the way he treats women, etc., right? And thirdly, literally did have deportation orders on him back in the past. So why exactly are Democrats defending this guy? Why are they claiming that, oh, his due process was violated? Well, the counter argument I continue to hear is, oh, well, he never got convicted of any crimes, right? People are pointing out, well, he was arrested, but he never actually accrued a criminal record, to which I say, okay, and that's why they're saying, again, due process is being violated. Democrats don't understand what due process is. You can't just say his due process was denied when you frankly do not know the law. So I'm going to once again bring up that according to the Immigration and Nationality Act that was passed in 1952, and otherwise, on top of that, multiple statutes in U.S. law when it comes to dealing with foreign terrorist organizations, I simply respond to you by saying that Kilmar Garcia never had to be convicted or proved of any crimes in order to be subject to deportation. And why is that? On top of the fact he merely is an illegal alien. Well, this is, again, very important for people to understand before they claim his due process was violated. Under Section 237, again, of the Immigration and Nationality Act, you do not have to be a convicted terrorist or criminal in order to be deported. As a matter of fact, any alien for whom the government has reasonable grounds to believe, okay, that's key, reasonable grounds to believe, aka probable cause, you don't have to prove that he's MS-13, can be deported. They're subject to mandatory detention as well as specifically non-permanent residents, aka tourists, illegal aliens, etc., are subject to summary removal, aka fast and rapid and expedited deportation, again, under existing U.S. law. Let us remember that in the first day of the Trump administration, what did they do? They designated the Latin American cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. So what does the law essentially say on this matter? To make a long story short, if you're an illegal alien or non-resident with credible evidence and probable cause, which there's plenty of that, okay? That enough alone are grounds to be deported and summarily removed from the United States. You do not have to be convicted in criminal court in order to be subject to, that very deportation. And on top of that, this is also important information. I constantly continue to hear Democrats say that he had a withholding order. What did that mean? Well, back in 2019, I believe it was an appeals court, I presume like a higher judge, blocked the prior deportation order and put a withholding order on that. The reason being that they basically claimed it would not be safe for him to go back to El Salvador. So basically, you could think of it as a form of asylum. And this is what the Democrats keep saying. Oh, he had a withholding order, so you can't deport someone if there's a withholding order on them from a judge. Well, as you can also see, this is what they frankly just don't understand, okay? The moment that MS-13 was designated as a foreign terrorist organization, according to the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, Section 237, aliens who are deportable under Section 237 are ineligible for asylum and withholding of removal. In other words, any legal protection that Kilmar Garcia, suspected and well documented by, legal systems, MS-13 gang member, the moment that MS-13 was designated as a foreign terrorist organization, any claim of withholding that he previously had, that they're claiming, oh, he was illegal to be deported. No. What happened to that? Immediately, it was null and void. Furthermore, people may say, oh, but still, you have to have the normal process of an immigration judge in order to have a deportation. No, not in this case, right? Because aliens who are subject to removal proceedings under Section 237, so we're talking about terrorism or suspected terrorism here, okay, are not subject or granted to a normal immigration court, as you can see, may be subject to removal proceedings before a special court established under Section 501 of the Immigration and Nationality Act instead of before an immigration judge. So in other words, right, as you can see, the Attorney General may file an application for the special court to be used where he or she has classified information that the alien is a suspected alien terrorist. So in other words, right? Everything the Trump administration did here, specifically because they designated MS-13 as a terrorist organization, is completely legal. And the so-called due process that people are bringing up, the Democrats literally have no clue what they're talking about and have no clue, frankly, what due process is. And just another reason here, by the way, that the entire narrative continues to fall apart for them. They continue to look stupid, and they continue to, again, pick the worst political hills to die on.
I think it is a political issue. I also think it's a national security issue. Prince George's County in 2019, their gang unit determined that Garcia was an MS-13 gang member. His wife in 2021, the wife that's now giving lengthy testimonies about how great he is, said that he's a serial abuser, and she has a ton of photos to showcase said abuse. I agree, due process is absolutely important. We want to maintain that, but I think there's absolutely enough here to send this guy somewhere else. One, he's already broken the law. We've already established that. Now you do have evidence suggesting that he was a member or is a member of MS-13. He's also a serial abuser. This is not the type of individual I don't think any one of us would want in our country. He should be deported.
Respectfully, sir, Michael, we can't make it about Kilmar. Like, that's just one person.
But that's the case we're talking about.
That is, but I guess if we look at the macro and not the micro, and just look at the process of this, because he's not the only person there. There were they indiscriminately rounded up people and deported them. We also saw in the news this week, maybe it was last week, it's been a long year this week, but the Massachusetts attorney who got the letter saying that you have 7 days to leave the country. This administration has already proven that there are flaws in this system, and they are randomly deporting people without due process. That's not specific to him. That should be specific to all of us.
Yeah, so once again, that so-called due process is literally, as we're reading for you, established U.S. law. Okay, we did not just make this up. But what, again, is it really about? They don't care about due process. They care about the facts. And this literally is the political constituency and the hill to die on for the Democrat Party. It basically all boils down to, no, Trump, you're so mean and bad. How dare you remove violent criminals and terrorists from our country? That's what it's about, you know? Anyways, we look forward to hearing more from Chris Van Hollen, because he continues to make a complete fool out of himself, and so do all of these Democrats. And yeah, I assure you, keep focusing on this story. Because the longer it goes for you, I'm sure the more evidence that comes out, it's surely going to be in your favor for sure, because that's the way it's been going so far, right? Anyways, with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.